So, given some pieces of information about a linear function, how can we write an equation to describe it? We're going to look at that today. The easiest way is when you have a slope and a y-intercept, because then we're just going to use slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. If we don't have the slope or the y-intercept, things get a little bit more complicated. But we're going to start simple and say, how do we write this if we have the slope and the y-intercept? So if we're asked to write the equation of a line that has slope 1/2 and y-intercept 4, we're just going to start with that y equals mx plus b. And we know the slope is our m and the y-intercept is our b. So this is going to be y equals 1/2 x plus 4. Done. So nice. So simple. If we have a slope and careful, this is a great point, a very helpful point. Notice that x equals 0, which means the other number has to be my y-intercept. So here we have the slope and a point, but it's not just any point, it's my y-intercept again. So this is going to be y equals, again, mx plus b, so 1/2 x. And then the y-intercept happens at 3, so we just go plus 3. So if we don't have the y-intercept, but we do have a point, we can find our b using what we do have. So we know we have a slope of 2, that's my m. What we don't have is b, so we're going to solve for that. So I'm going to write my equation y equals mx plus b, but I don't know b yet. So I'm going to write y equals 2x plus b, and I don't know what b is. I do know one point, though, for this equation. I know that when x is 5, y is 2. So that means I could plug those points in and solve for what b needs to be. So I'm going to put that 2 in for y and the 5 in for x, and I'm going to leave that plus b and then solve for it. So 2 times 5 is 10. Getting b all by itself on one side. We end up with -8 equals b. And careful, the question doesn't say, what's the y-intercept? It says write the equation. So we need to go back to the top and say, okay, our equation was y equals mx plus b. I know that m is 2, and I now know that b is -8, so -8. Could you also write this as y equals 2x plus -8? Yeah, absolutely. Adding -8 is the same as subtracting 8. So whichever way you prefer is fine. We could also we were just using slope-intercept form. We can also use point-slope form. This is an equation for a line in which we have the slope and we have a point. And that point is our x1, y1. So into this equation, we're going to put in our value for x and our value for y. So this one, you just have to memorize the form. But if you have that form, you can use it to write things in point-slope form. So we're going to do that exact same problem, but using point-slope form instead of solving for b. So let's look at that. So we've got the exact same slope and number. This is my x1, y1. And this time we are going to solve it using point-slope form. So that's my formula. I'm going to plug in my numbers. So the slope was 2. And then, sorry, I'm just color coding here, not really for any good reason, but x1 is 5 and y1 is 2. And then you're done. You don't have to go any further than this. This is the equation of your line. You can be done right now. If you want, you can take this equation of a line and turn it into slope-intercept form, that y equals mx plus b, if you wanted to know what the y-intercept was without having to graph this and see where it landed. So if we were to do that, I'm going to distribute out the 2. And then add this 2 to both sides, and we already know what this answer is going to be because we solved it on the other slide, but y equals 2x minus 8. So entirely your choice how you do these when you have a slope and a point. You can start with y equals mx plus b, plug in your point, solve for b. Or if you prefer, you can start with point slope form, plug in your point, and then you can be done. You can leave it like that, or you can turn it into y equals mx plus b form if you want to. You don't need to. This one is already correct. All right. So what if we don't have the slope? So in this one, I have an x-intercept of 6 and a y-intercept of -2. And I want to find the equation mx plus b. So if the x-intercept is 6, that means that goes through 6, 0. And if the y-intercept is -2, that happens when x is 0. So I've got these 2 points. I already know my y-intercept. Fantastic. So if I was writing y equals mx plus b, I could put in -2 right here. And then I could plug in 6 and 0 for x and see what 6 for x and 0 for y, and see what happens to find out what our m should be. So I'm going to add my 2 to both sides. Instead of m6, I'm going to write this 6m, yeah. And then I'm going to divide by 6 on both sides, and I have 2/6 or 1/3 is my slope. So my equation is y equals 1/3 x, we already knew this part was, minus 2. Another way you can do this is you can look straight at the graph and count between those 2 intercepts from -2 on the y-axis up and over to 6 on the x-axis. If you do that, you're going to count up to and over 6. Or you can also just use the slope formula, which, just in case it's been a minute, the slope formula is change in y over change in x, or y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. In this one, we might have -2 minus 0 over 0 minus 6, which gives us -2 over -6, again, which simplifies to positive 1/3. So a couple different ways to look at that one when you have the intercepts. Again, if you're graphing this, 2 points makes a line. So all you have to do is put these 2 points on and draw a line through it. And once you have the graph, it can be easy to count to find the slope. So lots of different methods to solve if you know the intercepts. If we don't have the slope and don't have the y-intercept, we only have 2 points, and neither of them are nice points. Notice neither of these are intercepts. Now we want to find the slope first, and then we're going to find either b and do y equals mx plus b, or we can use a point and do point slope form. So let's try. Change in y over change in x. Okay, so change in y here, I'm going to go -9 minus 7 over 4 minus -4. Turns into -16 over 4 plus 4 is 8. And this one simplifies so nicely. -16 divided by 8 is -2. So I know my slope is -2. Your choice from here. If you want to do slope-intercept form, point-slope form, you can just pick either of these points and plug it into point-slope form. If I use -4, 7, y minus 7 equals -2 times x minus -4 minus a minus turns into plus. And you can be done. There's your equation. Done in point-slope form. I love slope-intercept form, so I'm going to do it that way. So I have y equals m is -2, x plus b. I'll use that same point to plug in. I'm going to put in 7 for y and -4 for x. And then, I can see this one already. 8 plus b minus 8 minus 8, and we have -1 equals b. I like this one better only because I immediately know how to graph this. I know how to graph this, but I like graphing better with this. And again, we could have started with point slope and turned it into slope intercept if you really want to. Doesn't matter to me, entirely your choice. Let's practice that again. So slope is change in y over change in x. So I'm going to do 6 minus 2. And if I did 6 first, then I have to do -3 first. -3 minus -1. Now notice this time I did x2, y2 over here and x1, y1 over here. It doesn't matter actually which one is y2 and which one is y1, as long as whichever one you start with, you start on both the top and the bottom. All right, 6 minus 2 is 4. -3 plus 1 turns into -2. Oh my gosh, does this have the same slope? Yes. Let's see if it has a different intercept. I'm going to do my y equals mx plus b. Y equals mx plus b. I'm going to plug in a point. Which one? How about -1, 2? Just for fun. Oh, interesting. 2 equals 2 plus b. Well, b has to be 0, I think. So this equation is going to be -2x. You can write plus 0 if you want to. You don't have to. It doesn't make any difference to the equation. If we did that in point slope form instead, either point that you want to use, y minus 6 equals -2 times x minus -3 changes into a plus. All right. One more time. Finding the slope of a line that passes through 3, -2, and 3, 5. Before we even do this, what do you notice? We should hopefully notice that we've got 3 here and 3 here. The same x value, but 2 different y values. That's strange. Let's see about this. So 5 minus -2 and 3 minus 3. That turns into 5 plus 2 over 3 minus 3 is 0. Can you ever divide by 0? No. 7 divided by 0 is undefined. This does not exist, or it's undefined, however you want to say it, because how could we take 7 somethings and split it into groups of nothing? We can't do it. So anytime you have 0 on the bottom, that slope is undefined. Now we need to remember how much we know about linear equations. Hopefully we remember that we have positive slope and we have negative slope and we have 0 slope. What does an undefined slope look like? I'm hoping that you're yelling it to your computer right now. But it's a vertical line. Undefined slope is a vertical line, and they're always an x equals equation. That 0 slope line is always a y equals some number, and a vertical line is always x equals some number. So in this one, since we have an undefined slope, this had better be an x equals. And now we're just going to look at the points. What does x equal? In both of these points, x was 3, so x equals 3. If, when we went through our slope, we got that the slope was 0, so we had 0 on the top of the equation, not the bottom, that would be a y equals horizontal line. Okay, what if you have a graph? Looking at the graph, I can see my y-intercept right now. Fantastic. So in my y equals mx plus b, I know that b is -6. I need to find the slope. Hopefully you remember how to find the slope, but if you don't, we're looking for 2 nice points and we count in between them. This one goes up 2 and to the right 1, so my slope is 2 over 1, or just 2 if you want it. Let's try another. Here, I notice my slope is going down. Also, watch it. This is a mean graph. It's going, these are 5s and these are 1s. terrible. So between two nice points, I'm going down 5 and to the right 1. So my slope is negative 5 over 1. And it's crossing the y-axis at 15, so plus 15. Here we have a horizontal line. Remember, these are always 0 slope. So this is going to be you could write it as y equals 0x plus, where does it cross? Negative 4. But you can also just write it as y equals negative 4. Horizontal lines are always going to be y equals a number. All right. Y-intercept of 3. So in my y equals mx plus b, that's a plus 3. What's my slope? Let's find another nice point. From here, we're going down 2 to the right 1. Boy, I've had so many negative 2 slopes today. That's my equation, negative 2x plus 3. Woohoo, a vertical line. Remember, these are always an x equals equation. They have no slope. And also notice, when do they cross the y-axis? Never. They're parallel to the y-axis. So the y-intercept also does not exist on an x equals equation. And what does x equal? It's crossing at 8. So x equals 8. Done. You will also see problems using function notation, and I just wanted to remind you that function notation shows us, if f of 3 equals 9, all that means is when x is 3, y is 9. It's just telling us like the x coordinate right inside of the y coordinate. So if you see something like this, a linear function where f of negative 3 is 1, that means I have the point negative 3, 1. And f of 1 is 4, so I have the point 1, 4. And now we're solving just like we've been doing the whole time. We just don't want to let the f of x trip us up. So for my slope, change in y, let's do 4 minus 1, over change in x, I have to do 1 first because I did 4 first. 1 minus negative 3. So I've got 4 minus 1 is 3 over 1 plus 3. I've got 3/4 for my slope. Now your choice, you can do point slope form if you'd rather, and then multiply or not. Or I can solve for b. This one might be a bit more of a mess to solve for b, but listen, I still want to know. Let's do it. I'm going to plug in 1/4, I think. 3/4 times 1 plus b equals 4. Ooh, yeah. Going to have some fractions here. Remember, 3/4 times anything, we go times 3 and divide by 4. 3 times 1 is 3. 3 divided by 4 is, well, 3/4. We're going to subtract 3/4 on both sides of this equation, which is going to tell us that b equals 4 minus 3/4. If it helps you, remember, 1 whole has 4/4. So 4 would have 4, 8, 12, 16/4. So this is 16/4, take away 3/4, and it's 13/4. Or maybe you just said 3 1/4. Either way. It's a bit of a mess now, isn't it? All right.